Hey, good morning, team. It is Tuesday, February 6th. I'm Amy Corr. I'm here for another great episode of Coffee. You may notice an amazing guest sitting in Kevin's seat. I've got the fabulous Paul Blackburn. Many of you know him. He is one of our managing brokers, and he manages two great offices here in the city of Chicago. And he's going to be joining me. Kevin is out of town this week, and we've got a great topic for you. I'm really excited. It's actually a topic that Paul introduced me to about a year and a half ago. So on that note, though, let's make sure you've got your coffee cup nice and warm, and let's jump into the next episode of Coffee with Amy and Kevin. Hey, Paul.
Amy, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Excited to be here. Excited to be the first guest of 2024, especially
Yes.
in this new setup.
Yes, no, I'm excited. We are liking this new format. It's a little more casual,
Yeah.
kind of chit-chatting.
Exactly.
So it's been good. It's been good. So I really wanted to have you come on this morning because this in the fall in 2023 at our expo we had the opportunity to have Will Guidara on, who wrote the book Unreasonable Hospitality. I don't know if many of you have gotten it or have read it yet. It's a great book, but I'm going to tell you the honest truth that Paul Blackburn about a year and a half ago was the one that introduced me to the book and to all of the concepts that are in it. So, as we're moving into 2024, one of the things we're really focusing on is the idea of how can we do things differently? How can we build deeper relationships? Sometimes as agents, we think we just need more bodies or more people to add to our database. But I think, if we really help them figure out how to deepen the relationships that they've got, then that's going to be the greater win in a referral-based business.
Exactly right. Could not agree more with that sentiment. And that's what I love about this book, because it's not a sales book. The book is really about deepening those relationships. And it starts off by Will talking about how he took 11 Madison Park from a fantastic restaurant and making it the #1 restaurant in the world simply by creating phenomenal experiences and meeting his guests exactly where they were at and having this one-size-fits-one hospitality, and something that translates extremely well even into our business, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And a lot of people think it is about that. It is about the expensive food and buying a client an extremely expensive bottle of wine, but it's not. It's about taking the time to listen, to understand exactly what they're going through, and developing experiences that are actually memorable and make them feel really good. Because I guarantee you, when you're able to do that, a client's never going to forget how you made them feel.
Yeah. What I loved about the book is, he talked about the fact that they were taking such a different approach compared to all these other restaurants that had won Michelin stars and were really considered the best restaurants in the world. And while he said, the food is so important, it was the experience you were having while you were eating the food was where he really focused. And I thought in agreement with you that it resonates so well with us because yes, we're certainly doing things to help people buy a house or sell a house, but it's what's the experience that we're wrapping up into that when we're working with them or even after they've bought or sold, right? What are we continuing to do to create an amazing experience? And I have a question for you because in the book, one of the biggest things that Will talks about is the idea of really the difference between service and hospitality. So I want you to share because in all honesty, Paul was the one who introduced me to that concept before I read the book, but I loved it. So tell me a little bit about how he explains the difference between the two.
Sure. So he explains it, at the onset with one simple sentence, right? And he basically says that, look, service is black and white, hospitality is color. So a lot of times, and if we use a restaurant as an example, we think hospitality might be the food being brought out at the exact right time, plates all being removed in unison from a table, the perfect setup of flatware and really fine linens. That's the service aspect. That's not hospitality. Hospitality are those little extras that happen throughout the entire experience that make you feel seen, that make you feel heard. And it's something that cannot be replicated for every single person in the same way. Each experience is going to be different. And that is truly what the difference is. So in our business, right, we can think of great service as being extremely responsive, of course, right? Making sure that we're up to date on the market, we really know our craft, having fantastic marketing materials. The hospitality is how are we pulling all those things together and making our client feel really valued in that experience, whether they're buying or selling. And no matter what comes their way, they feel really, really fantastic.
Yeah, and actually feel special.
Exactly.
I think that's the biggest
Yep.
thing that I got out of this is they feel like there's no one else that you're paying attention to but them.
100%.
So now I want to ask you, because
Yeah.
you shared a story when you were still selling. It might have been right after you'd read this book and you decided to kind of turn on this concept of unreasonable hospitality with a gentleman that was visiting and looking for a condo. So you want to tell that story?
Yeah, so I was looking to step things up with this person, and I knew he knew a lot of people in Chicago, and I wanted to get as many referrals as possible from him, of course. And what I used to do a lot with my clients would be to always, after a showing, perhaps we'd go out and we'd grab a drink and we'd chat, or maybe it was a listing appointment. After that, I'd have a bottle of wine dropped off. But those are things that can be consistent and can be done with any client. So in this case, this client had come to Chicago, his first time here checking out properties, and we had gone and looked at about 10 different condos. And his name was Adam. And the one thing to know about Adam is Adam loved his dog Maisie and was obsessed with his dog. So every condo we looked at in the South Loop, he would be asking, how far is the dog park? He would then ask, I wonder if this would be good for Maisie. Would Maisie like this place? And it kind of became a little bit of a running joke. And I also noticed he was taking just notes on everything. Every condo we saw,
Very
Amy,
detail-oriented.
there was a dissertation. So he went back to Michigan, and he was to come back in 2 weeks, and we were going to go and look at his narrowed down list of buildings that he really felt fit him, and of course Maisie. So here's what I did. I wanted to make sure that he felt fantastic and that he understood that I actually was listening to everything he was bringing up. So I had a great booklet put together, everything printed in color, bound looking fantastic, and on the cover of that booklet was a photo I pulled from social media, from Facebook,
Okay.
of him and his golden retriever Maisie.
Oh, I love it.
And it said Maisie and Adam's home search. And then when he'd opened it up, after each listing, there was a map. And the map showed in detail exactly how far away that building was from the nearest dog park. And it showed the walking map and how long it would take to walk there. And then there was a simple question, all right, on that piece of paper that said, would Maisie approve?
Oh my
Check yes
God.
or no.
Yes.
And it was funny, it was a little bit silly, but it met him exactly where he was at.
And
when
what
he-
was his reaction when he saw that?
he loved it. He burst out laughing, first off. But the first thing he did, he took out his phone, right, and he took a photo, and it went right on social media. So absolutely fantastic. And he felt heard with that. And you know what? He remembers that to this day, years later.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's an incredible story. But I mean, it met Adam exactly where he was at in
Exactly.
his search. And the thing too is sometimes I think when we look at how do we care for our clients, it isn't always about the dollar component. It's much more about what you're doing that makes them feel incredibly special, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And that I could not do for any other client
Yeah.
except for Adam.
Right,
Yep.
right. I love it. That's a perfect example of how you can use it in real estate.
Agreed.
So let's talk about a few more ideas, though. Again, unreasonable hospitality is kind of a theme we're bringing into 2024 at our regional meetings a couple of
Okay.
weeks ago. We talked with our agents and talked about examples of how they could do it. But
Yep.
if I'm an agent out there right now and I'm thinking, all right, how do I take this and implement it into my business? You've got a couple of examples or ideas or things that you're hearing agents doing right now. So let's share them.
Yeah, so I'll share one from the Goose Island office, John Gerstein. I'm calling you out. And it was a very simple one. He had two sets of clients, past clients of his who knew each other, were friends, and he happened to be talking to one of them and found out they were having a little dinner party at one of their homes on a Friday evening. So what did he do? He just called up Sweet Mandy B's. He had some fantastic desserts sent over for the family and for the kids, and they loved it.
Man.
They freaked
Yeah.
out. He had the nicest text message, and it wasn't expensive. It was a very simple thing, but very timely for that night.
Yeah.
So I thought that was absolutely fantastic.
I love it. And I just heard a recent story about an agent who was working with a buyer. It was a couple and they have a family and they kept losing out on opportunities. So the parents decided we don't want to take the kids to see the houses anymore until we know we've got one secured. So they finally got their house under contract and the kids had not seen it yet. And so they shared with their real estate agent that they wanted to bring the kids in and let them select their room. So the real estate agent went and got these customized door tags with the kids' initials on them and gave them to them so that when they got there, the whole experience of picking your room, they got to kind kind of tag their
that's
actual
great.
room with this kind of, just personalized little door hanger. Not a lot of money, not a lot of time, but just made that experience that much more memorable. And, there was another agent that I just talked to also who had a client who was super sick, and she decided, why not, pull together a batch of matzo ball soup, get some tea, some honey, some lemon. She packaged it up, brought it on over, and she said, her client burst into tears because it was just one of those things where it was so unexpected and it was so thoughtful. So
That's
it's
great.
like it doesn't take a lot of time, sometimes even time, energy, or money. It's just being aware of it. So as we get ready to wrap right now, we were talking about this earlier, but how can agents keep this concept of meeting their clients where they're at? Because we all get busy.
Yeah.
How do I make sure that as I'm up in the morning, I'm thinking about it, and I make sure to think, aha, I can do this one little thing, and it might really move the needle with a client or somebody in my network?
Yeah, so I want you as agents out there to be excited about this, right? This is an opportunity to really be excited. What we do is really important. We're selling a home. We're helping someone buy a home where they're going to find out some fantastic news and maybe even some bad news down the road. This is a very intimate relationship. There's such opportunity right here. So I think what we should do is start training ourselves, Amy, to be able to look for opportunities. So here's what I've done. What I've done is when I go out to a restaurant, I go to the car dealership, I'm walking in to see a doctor, I'm looking for opportunities of how they could have made my experience
I love
better.
it. Yes.
And
Rating them.
Exactly. and you start to see missed opportunities,
Yeah.
which, it may upset you from time to time because you're thinking, oh my goodness, it was so
If they
easy.
had just done this.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But when you start training yourself in that way, you are going to start to see opportunities in your own business. And it really just has to become habitual. So we start training ourselves in that way. We have fun with it. You'll be shocked at the amount of opportunities you will start to see in your own business.
That's so great. Well, I love the idea of fun.
Yeah,
Really
it is
having fun with this, because it's about being authentic. It's about, really going deeper with your clients, which really is what this is all about, right?
100%. Take the time to listen, take some notes, find out more about the client, make those memorable experiences happen.
I love it. I could talk to Paul all day long. I'm so glad that we are in the same office together
Me
most of the
too.
time. So on that note, we hope you got some great tips or some great ideas to start thinking about how you can be meeting your clients where they're at and creating stronger relationships. Make it a fabulous Tuesday. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. But until then, remember, Paul, this is what we always say. You got this.
You got this.